Before the Fellowship was the greatest story you've never heard. I'm Greg.
I'm Cameron.
I'm Dan.
Join us as we read and react to the Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. Last time we read about Aule and Yavanna. Aule created the dwarves in secret. Ilúvatar initially rebuked him, but eventually blessed the creation. Yavanna had reservations about them. Today we continue with Chapter 3 of Quenta Silmarillion. Chapter 3 of the Coming of the Elves and the Captivity of Melkor. Through long ages the Valar dwelt in bliss in the light of the trees beyond the mountains of Aman, but all Middle-earth lay in a twilight under the stars. While the lamps had shone, growth began there, which now is checked, because all was again dark. But already the oldest living things had arisen. In the seas, the great weeds, and on earth the shadow of great trees. And in the valleys of the night-clad hills, there were dark creatures, old and strong. To those lands and forests the Valar seldom came, save only Yavanna and Orome. And Yavanna would walk there in the shadows, grieving because the growth and promise of the spring of Arda was stayed. And she sat asleep upon many things that had arisen in the spring, so that they should not age, but should wait for a time of awakening that yet should be. But in the north Melkor built his strength, and he slept not, but watched and labored. And the evil things that he had perverted walked abroad, and the dark and slumbering woods were haunted by monsters and shapes of dread. And in Utumno he gathered his demons about him, those spirits who first adhered to him in the days of his splendor, and became most like him in his corruption. Their hearts were of fire, but they were cloaked in darkness, and terror went before them. They had whips of flame. Balrogs they were named in Middle-earth in later days. And in that dark time Melkor bred many other monsters of diverse shapes and kinds that long troubled the world, and his realm spread now ever southward over Middle-earth. And Melkor made also a fortress, an armory, not far from the northwestern shores of the sea, to resist any assault that might come from Aman. That stronghold was commanded by Sauron, lieutenant of Melkor, and it was named Angband. It came to pass that the Valar held counsel, for they became troubled by the tidings that Yavanna and Orome brought from the outer lands. And Yavanna spoke before the Valar, saying, "Ye mighty of Arda, the vision of Ilúvatar was brief, and soon taken away, so that maybe we cannot guess within a narrow count of days the hour appointed. Yet be sure of this, the hour approaches, and within this age our hope shall be revealed, and the children shall awake. Shall we then leave the lands of their dwelling desolate and full of evil? Shall they walk in darkness while we have light? Shall they call Melkor Lord, while Manwë sits upon Taniquetil?" And Tulkas cried, "Nay, let us make war swiftly. Have we not rested from strife overlong, and is not our strength now renewed? Shall one alone contest with us forever?" But at the bidding of Manwë, Mandos spoke, and he said, "In this age the children of Ilúvatar shall come indeed, but they come not yet. Moreover, it is doom that the firstborn shall come in the darkness, and shall look first upon the stars. Great light shall be for their waning. To Varda ever shall they call at need." Then Varda went forth from the council, and she looked out from the height of Taniquetil, and beheld the darkness of Middle-earth beneath the innumerable stars, faint and far. Then she began a great labor, greatest of all the works of the Valar since their coming into Arda. She took the silver dews from the vats of Telperion, and therewith she made new stars, and brighter against the coming of the firstborn. Wherefore she whose name out of the deeps of time and the labors of Ea was Tintale, the kindler, was called after by the elves Elentari, queen of the stars. Carnil and Luinil, Nanar and Lumbar, Alcarinque and Elamire. She wrought in that time, and many other of the ancient stars she gathered together, and set as signs in the heavens of Arda, Wilwarin, Telumindil, Soronume, and Anarima, and Menelmakar, with his shining belt, that forebodes the last battle that shall be at the end of days. And high in the north, as a challenge to Melkor, she set the crown of 7 mighty stars to swing, Valasirka, the sickle of the Valar, and sign of doom. It is told that even as Varda ended her labors, and they were long when first Menelmakar strode up the sky, and the blue fire of Halloween flickered in the mists above the borders of the world, in that hour the children of the earth awoke, the firstborn of Ilúvatar. By the starlit mere of Cuivienen, water of awakening, they rose from the sleep of Ilúvatar, and while they dwelt, yet silent, by Cuivienen, their eyes beheld first of all things the stars of heaven. Therefore they have ever loved the starlight, and have revered Varda Elentari above all the Valar. In the changes of the world, the shapes of the lands and of seas have been broken and remade. Rivers have not kept their courses, neither have mountains remained steadfast. And to Cuivienen there is no returning. But it is said among the elves that it lay far off in the east of Middle-earth and northward, and it was a bay in the inland sea of Helkar. And that sea stood where aforetime the roots of the mountains of Iluin had been before Melkor overthrew it. Many waters flowed down thither from heights in the east, and the first sound that was heard by the elves was the sound of water flowing, and the sound of water falling over stone. Long they dwelt in their first home by the water under stars, and they walked the earth in wonder. And they began to make speech and to give names to all things that they perceived. Themselves they named the Quendi, signifying those that speak with voices. For as yet they had met no other living things that spoke or sang. And on a time it chanced that Orome rode eastward in his hunting, and he turned north by the shores of Helkar, and passed under the shadows of the Orokarni, the mountains of the east. Then on a sudden Nahar set up a great neighing and stood still. And Orome wondered and sat silent, and it seemed to him that in the quiet of the land under the stars he heard afar off many voices singing. Thus it was that the Valar found at last, as it were by chance, those whom they had so long awaited. And Orome, looking upon the elves, was filled with wonder, as though they were beings sudden and marvelous and unforeseen. For so it shall ever be with the Valar. From without the world, though all things may be forethought in music or foreshown in vision from afar, to those who enter verily into Ea each in its time, shall be met at unawares as something new and unforetold. All right. Well, that's a big introduction to the children of Ilúvatar, finally making an appearance here.
It's interesting how they come by surprise. Or in conjunction with the creation of stars, right?
I think as I read it, Varda creates the stars for their coming, knowing that she doesn't want them to be, because there's no light right now. That's one of the details of the world as it exists at this time, is there still isn't light. And it's kind of seen as a sad thing that the children of Ilúvatar will come into a world without light. Something that I thought was really interesting, I think we had mentioned this before, but Frodo in The Lord of the Rings will call upon the name of Elbereth, who's Varda, right? That's like the elven name of Varda. And this kind of explains further why she's so important to them, because they have this deep connection with the stars. That was the first light they ever knew. And so they esteem her highest amongst all the Valar and Valier. And
maybe it's good to just give a quick summary on what happened. So here's how I understand it. Maybe you guys can fill in the blank. So after the Valar kind of built this, this storehouse in between mountains to kind of keep the light safe, the beautiful good things safe, Melkor creates Angband, which translates to Iron Prison. It's like his deep fortress. And Tulkas is like, hey, we have to attack now. Like, now is the best time to attack. But Mandos, who's like the doom sayer, who like knows things that others don't, he says that the children of Ilúvatar shall come, but not yet, and they shall come in darkness. So in a sense, it should be dark now. But Varda, so let me get this straight. Varda creates light like stars so that it will still be darkness, but they'll have something to behold or something to see.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And then Orome is just wandering around hunting, and then he just hears them singing. And Ilúvatar has created his children, which have been prophesied since the beginning.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I
think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah, it talks about Helluin, and how in that hour the children of the earth awoke. And that was created more than 3 ages before the rising of the sun. So
is that what you're reading from the
from Arda, yeah.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Encyclopedia of Arda.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's crazy. I don't know if that means that Helluin was created then, but I'm guessing it was created. I mean, I'm trying to see if it was created.
Are you talking about Quivianen?
Nope. Helluin.
Helluin.
Yeah. It's spelled Helluin. Yeah, it's told that even as Varda ended her labors, and they were long, when first Menelmakar strode up the sky and the blue fire of Helluin, which I love that note, by the way, that it's a blue star. Like, not only does he like name the stars, but he gives them unique qualities. Incredible. Helluin flickered in the mists above the borders of the world. In that hour, the children of the earth awoke. So at some point,
and that's the sun, right? The sun that they would know. It's maybe hidden from.
No, there's no sun, right?
No,
it's just starlit.
It's not available to them. It's not visible to them. Is that what you're saying? That it does exist, but it's not.
No, it says.
Well, maybe
their eyes beheld first of all things the stars of heaven.
Yeah.
So they can see them, but they're not like illuminating everything. It would be like if we lived in a place without the moon or the sun, I imagine.
So Helluin is one star amongst the many stars, but it's not like the sun is a star. It's like just another star that's
Right.
blue.
Their sun has not risen yet and won't rise for a while. I mean,
The Valar
Helluin
take
was
their
created like 3 ages before the rising of the sun. And I don't know if we've already like seen
That's
when
what that's
it was
what I
created.
thought. That's what I and then I started getting confused once there's. I mean, a lot of these stars are named, but
Yeah.
that one's given special significance. I like that there are there's like constellations in here too, and one of them that's mentioned by name is Manwë with his shining belt, which sounds a lot like Orion,
Right.
you know. And I don't know, it just makes you wonder if these are the same stars, you know, or the same, even
same constellations.
yeah. If it were like a world near ours, it would have similar constellations and similar constellations.
In the beginning, didn't it say it was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away?
Dang,
then it would be a
that must
different
mean it would be different, unless coincidentally, the arrangement of nearby stars was exactly the same. And
You know what I want to do? I want to pick one of these names of one of these stars and just commit it to memory. So then in the future, when people are like, "Oh, have you read the Silmarillion?" and I'm just like, "Yeah." You know, Tintali. It's
I'll
probably
just
my
be
favorite.
like, Helluin I have.
Just totally own them with your knowledge, but just of one obscure thing. Yeah, Tintali is my favorite. Which one's yours?
That's incredible, though. I mean, I wonder if there's, I don't know what there's obviously some kind of, there might be some kind of significance to the fact that there's darkness, but there's light. They are privy to the things of heaven first before they are really privy to sight of the things of earth. Their eyes first turn upwards before they turn downwards. I just love that. I don't know.
It is kind of reconciling their doom or their destiny being, you know, they have to be born in darkness. But Varda figures out a way to have them be born in darkness, but still have some light.
Yeah.
I think stars are a good in between. You know, you don't have a sun rising on the horizon, but you have some stars. It's really beautiful how you see the different personalities of the Valar come together.
Yeah, it's way cool.
yeah,
So this is just really
I,
they show up and stars show up. That's what.
I like that between amongst all the Valar, they have some disagreement. They all kind of have their specific purpose, and there's some autonomy within that, and they don't always agree. But Manwë and Manda seem to be able to hold things together. They're not like, you know, the Greek pantheon that's just constantly quarreling over petty things. Like, they're all trying to fulfill their purpose and care for their specific realm.
Yeah. Cool.
I think that's an important note, right? That they, I mean, there's discord in the world, but it's specifically opposed to the Valar and Ilúvatar. But them like following Ilúvatar leads to them cooperating and conceding things when they need to, you know.
Where do you see them cooperating with Ilúvatar? Or what
they seem to. That's not something that was read today, but just in general, like Melkor is the opposite of that, who defies him. Now, I guess you could say that Ale, when he created the doors, was also kind of in defiance. But even then, the way he said it was more of this admiration for Ilúvatar. He was a creator, so I also want to create like him. And so just their submission to him, I guess, in a broad sense.
Yeah, and Tulkas is not like, well, if you guys aren't going to fight, I'm going to go fight by myself.
Right.
You know,
right.
There's not this rebellion in their hearts. They're just very different.
Yes.
Different individuals, but they come together and there's kind of a hierarchy that they obey. You know, Mando speaks these important words at the bidding of Mando speaks them at the bidding of Manwë.
Right.
And Manwë is already shown as the highest of the Valar.
Right.
So they all kind of are subservient to Manwë, who is himself subservient to Ilúvatar.
Speaking of like a hierarchy there, we do hear of Sauron too
Yeah,
for the first time.
I was just going to mention that. And
that's kind of interesting, just in contrast too, because he's like the lieutenant of Melkor, it says, and holds the stronghold of Angband. Angband. I don't know how to say that, but there is some of that there too. But that's not surprising. But just of what we know about Sauron from the Lord of the Rings, and Melkor's not really present there, right? Maybe we'll hear about that, about why he's absent later. But
yes.
Yeah.
Do you remember how it said that Sauron wasn't as evil as Melkor for one reason, and that's because he served another?
Right.
Just serving his own purpose.
Right.
But I believe, and don't quote me on this and put it online. I believe that Sauron eventually does pursue his own purposes. But we'll just have to wait and see how Sauron and Melkor work together. It's just so cool to me that you have the big bad of Lord of the Rings, and then you have a bigger and a badder in Melkor, who's just bossing him around.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you like what you hear, go ahead and rate us 3 Silmarils out of 3. One day we'll hear about the Silmarils, but not today. But rate us 3 Silmarils out of 3. Follow us everywhere at Before the Fellowship, and send any comments or questions to beforethefellowship@gmail.com. Join us next week as we read the greatest story you've never heard, The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien.